and the time reckoning unit was probably used in the latter capacity when travel over water was involved. As such, it was a double hour, so that 100 BERU meant 200 hours of sailing. We have no way of determining the assumed or average sailing speed employed in these ancient distance reckonings. But there is no doubt that a truly distant land was reached after a sea voyage of over 2,000 or 3,000 miles. The texts indicate that Raleigh was situated west and south of Sumer. A ship traveling 2,000 to 3,000 miles in the southwesterly direction from the Persian Gulf could have only one destination: the shores of southern Africa. Only such a conclusion can explain the term's lower world, as meaning the southern hemisphere, where the land of Raleigh was, as contrasted with the upper world, or northern hemisphere, where Sumer was. Such a division of Earth's hemispheres between Enlil northern and Ea southern parallel the designation of the northern skies as the way of Enlil, and the southern skies as the way of Ea. The ability of the Nephilim to undertake interplanetary travel, orbit Earth, and land on it should obviate the question whether they could possibly have known of southern Africa, besides Mesopotamia. Many cylinder seals, depicting animals peculiar to the area such as the zebra or ostrich, jungle scenes, or rulers wearing leopard skins, in the African tradition, attest to an African connection. What interest did the Nephilim have in this part of Africa, diverting to it the scientific genius of Ea, and granting to the important gods in charge of the land unique tablet of wisdom? The Sumerian term Abyzu, which scholars have accepted to mean watery deep, requires a fresh and critical analysis. Literally, the term meant primeval deep source, not necessarily of waters. According to Sumerian grammatical rules, either of two syllables of any term could precede the other without changing the word's meaning, with the result that Abyzu and Zuab meant the same thing. The latter spelling of the Sumerian term enables identification of its parallel in the Semitic languages, for Zaab has always meant, and still means, precious metal, specifically gold in Hebrew, and its sister languages. The Sumerian pictograph for Abyzu was that of an excavation deep into earth, mounted by a shaft. Thus, Ea was not the lord of an indefinite watery deep, but the god in charge of the exploitation of Earth's minerals. In fact, the Greek abyssos, adopted from the Akkadian Apsu, also meant an extremely deep hole in the ground. Akkadian textbooks explain that Apsu is Nigba, the meaning of the word, and that of its Hebrew equivalent Nigba is very precise, a deep, man-made cutting, or drilling into the ground. P. Jensen Cosmology der Babylonia observed back in 1890 that the oft-encountered Akkadian term Batnimiku should not be translated as House of Wisdom, but as House of Deepness. He quoted a text VR.30 49-50 AB that stated it is from Batnimiku that gold and silver come. Another text 3.R.57 35 AB, he pointed out, explained that the Akkadian name goddess Shala of Nimiki was the translation of the Sumerian epithet goddess who hands the shining bronze. The Akkadian term Nimitu, which has been translated as wisdom, Jensen concluded, had to do with metals. But why? He admitted simply, I do not know. Some Mesopotamian hymns to Ea exalt him as Baal Nimiki, translated Lord of Wisdom, but the correct translation should undoubtedly be Lord of Mining. Just as the Tablet of Destinies at Nibiru contain orbital data, it follows that the Tablet of Wisdom entrusted to Nergal and Ereshkigal was in fact a Tablet of Mining, a data bank pertaining to the mining operations of the Nephilim. As Lord of the Oxga, Ea was assisted by another son, the god Gibilhi, who burns the soil, who was in charge of fire and smelting. Earthsmith, he was usually depicted as a young god whose shoulders emit red-hot razor sparks of fire emerging from the ground or about to descend into it. The texts state that Gibil was steeped by Ea in wisdom, meaning that Ea had taught him mining techniques. The metal ores mined in southeastern Africa by the Nephilim were carried back to Mesopotamia by specially designed cargo ships called New Abyzu ship for ores of the lower world. There, the ores were taken to Bad Tiburon, whose name literally meant the foundation of metalworking. Smelted and refined, the ores were cast into ingots whose shape remained unchanged throughout the ancient world for millennia. Such ingots were actually found at various Near Eastern excavations, confirming the reliability of the Sumerian pictographs as true depictions of the objects they wrote out. The Sumerian sign for the term Zag purified precious was the picture of such an ingot. In earlier times, it apparently had a hole running through its length, through which a carrying rod was inserted. Several depictions of the god of the flowing waters showed him flanked by barrels of such precious metal ingots, indicating that he was also the lord of mining. The various names and epithets for EA's African land of mines are replete with clues to its location and nature. It was known as a rally place of the shiny lodes, the land from which the metal ores come. Inanna, planning her descent to the southern hemisphere, referred to the place as the land where the precious metal is covered with soil, where it is found underground. A text reported by Erica Reiner, listing the mountains and rivers of the Sumerian world, stated Mount Arali home of the gold, and a fragmented text described by Itradal confirmed that Arali was the land on which Baghdad depended for its continued operations. The Mesopotamia text spoke of the land of mines as mountainous, with grassy plateaus and steppes, and lush with vegetation. The capital of Ereshkigal in that land was described by the Sumerian text as being in the Gab. Kura in the chest of the mountains well inland. In the Akkadian version of Ishtar's journey, the gatekeeper welcomes her into my lady. Let Gutu rejoice over thee, let the palace of the land of Nugia be glad at thy presence. Conveying in Akkadian the meaning, that which is in the heartland, the term Gutu in its Sumerian origin also meant the bright uplands. It was a land, all texts suggest, with bright days, awash with sunshine. The Sumerian terms for gold Kuji, bright out of earth, and silver Kubaber, bright gold, retained the original association of the precious metals with the bright Ku domain of Ereshkigal. The pictographic signs employed as Sumer's first writing reveal great familiarity not only with diverse metallurgical processes, but also with the fact that the sources of the metals were mines dug down into the earth. The terms for copper and bronze, and bright stone gold, the supreme mined metal, or refined bright purified, were all pictorial variants of a mine shaft opening/mouth for dark red metal. The land's name, Arali, could also be written as a variant of the pictograph for dark red soil, of rush dark red, but in time meaning Negro, or of the metals mined there. The pictographs always depicted variants of a mine shaft. Extensive references to gold and other metals in ancient texts suggest familiarity with metallurgy from the earliest times. A lively metals trade existed at the very beginnings of civilization, the result of knowledge bequeathed to mankind by the gods, who, the texts state, had engaged in mining and metallurgy long before man's appearance. Many studies that correlate Mesopotamian divine tales with the biblical pre-diluvial list of patriarchs point out that, according to the Bible, Tubal-Cain was an artificer of gold and copper and iron long before the deluge. The Old Testament recognized the land of Ophir, which was probably somewhere in Africa, as a source of gold in antiquity. King Solomon's ship convoys sailed down the Red Sea from Ezion-Geber, present-day Eilat, and they went to Ophir and fetched from thence gold. Unwilling to risk a delay in the construction of the Lord's temple in Jerusalem, Solomon arranged with his ally, Hiram, king of Tyre, to sail a second fleet to Ophir by an alternate route, and the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish. With the navy of Hiram, once every 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and monkeys.